Mr. Melling mentioned arguing about the rules, and the solution I believe that he is suggesting to us is that we make less rules. Then there won't be any rules to argue about. Let me read for you a little section from this little parliamentary law handbook. It says, contrary to what you may have heard, parliamentary law was not created to confuse people or to stand in the way of the will of the majority. It was instead devised as a logical method for dealing with many orders of business and different personalities. The overall principles of parliamentary procedure are often more important than the trivia of the rules. So, I would suggest that simply going for less rules is not the appropriate answer to the trouble we have with arguing about the rules. I think that the parliamentary procedure is appropriate, and Robert's Rules is appropriate in our deliberations. In fact, most of the nation unanimously agrees in this, as it is the rules that guide just about every body and how they conduct their business. So I would say another solution to our problem with arguing about the rules is that we should focus on understanding the rules, because the rules are there for a good reason. They've been developed over millennia, really, to serve the purpose of conducting business in a logical method and for dealing with many orders of business and differing personalities. So if we start with the presupposition that parliamentary law is merely a hindrance to getting business done, I think that's incorrect and even dangerous, because millennia of wisdom have given us these rules, and they say this is how to conduct a business in the most orderly, the fairest, and even the most expedited fashion. So I would say that we should seek to understand these rules instead of limit these rules. And if we seek to understand them and we accomplish that goal, then we won't be arguing about the rules. We'll all understand them, at least the basics of them. Like it said, it's more important to understand the basics than the trivia of the rules. So that is why I thought this meeting was a great opportunity for us to learn more about the basics of parliamentary law, so that we would not need to argue about the little things, because we would understand them already. So I think we need to be careful that we're looking at this from the right perspective, and not throwing out the baby with the bathwater in just getting rid of parliamentary procedure and running up our own rules. I think that would be a very foolish move for this body to take. So I would say that we should continue to consider the rules of parliamentary procedure and familiarize ourselves with how they work, with how motions work, the hierarchy of motions, the roles of different members of the body, and the rules of debate, the basics, so that we can conduct our business in an orderly, just, and expedited fashion.
Thank you, Mr. Brownlee. Basically, if there are any other comments, questions from this body, I would appreciate hearing them. But I have to mention that there's only one person on this council who argues about the rules, and that is Councilman Brownlee. I have not heard argument from anyone else. And the second thing is that you keep saying "we," and I'm not sure that we are all on that same page. I think Blair has done an excellent job of explaining some of the issues that we do have in following some of I guess we'll go back and call them rules. But the argument continues to come from, I think, visibly, vocally, only, and I understand the passion. If you are totally involved in that kind of procedure, I understand the passion, but maybe it's misplaced. Blair?
Yeah, I don't, you know, this is debate, and I enjoy debate, but I would pledge to everybody here that, and I praise it, I pose it to you to think about this from your own position. When the motion was previously made that I ruled on here today, was there anybody anybody else in this room other than me that had a clue as to what it meant
No.
and how it was being presented. And that's the frustrating part of Robert's Rules and Parliamentary Procedure. The other thing is that I think when you all sat there in your living rooms or your respective households and had discussions with people who were close to you about whether or not you wanted to run for council, most of you probably made the decision to run for council not because you wanted to become expert parliamentarians and not because of your expertise in parliamentary procedure. You wanted to be representative people. You wanted to be a government worker. You wanted to go and you wanted to get on with the business of the community. So I did not say that we should have less rules. I said we should simplify the procedures that we go through. And I would probably pledge to you that in my entire 25 years of public service, plus actually it's 26 years, we're in June, I probably have only had 5 different motions presented to me under the rules of, under Robert's Rules and under parliamentary procedure. And those motions are to present legislation, motion to adjourn, motion to table. Those are the basics. I trust that you've already had that, taking care of in your freshman orientation. So, the 5th rule that I had to rule on was, the calling of the question and getting back to the agenda. And I've had that before, so that's not like necessarily a new one. But I didn't say we want to have fewer rules. I want to focus on the rules that are important to you and not allow other rules to come in and play with an opportunity to confuse or quite frankly, potentially negate any discussion, frustrate progress, or a vote on any particular piece of legislation. We don't generally have filibusters in municipal government. You might have it in Congress, but most of those Congress people started in municipal government and learned as they went further on. So, anybody have any other question?
I just have a statement, Madam Chair.
Would you be recognized first? Go ahead.
Thank you. We can sit here and talk about parliamentary procedure, and yes, that is very important. But then we also have what I'm going to call home rule. We come up with your local rules that fits your city or state, and those are the ones that then you follow. Robert's rules, if I understand it right, only come to play if the local rules does not address a particular issue. Then you go to Robert's rules. Robert's rules does not supersede any rules that locally you have come up with. Am I correct on that? Okay. So if that's the case, if any of our rules address a particular issue, we follow that, and you can't supersede ours with Robert's rules. Yes, it is great, and we all should know our local ordinances and rules and codes and everything else probably better than any of us know. That's one thing, and that should be, I'm going to say, something we all should strive for. I think we have the written rules, and we have an attorney that when we get stuck somewhere, they can clarify that for us, and I think that's what they're there for. And I think that clarification should be like the bottom line when we get to a discussion about the procedure or our laws. That's it.
Thank you. Go ahead, Alex.
To Mr. Blair, Jackie. And Ron, like I said, the same thing. He's been justified, 23,000 residents. We got through this all these years. We did fine. Sometimes John gives us an opinion when we asked. We have a right to outside attorney if we don't agree. And in the new rules, I see the elimination of page 8 under F. And I'd like to amend them rules to put in any questions or actions that is questionable and cannot be answered by the charter where rules of council shall be governed by this latest revision of the Roberts Rules of Order.
We don't know.
Page 8 under F.
It's on page 10, at the bottom.
He's looking to create that.
Oh, he wants to create it.
Yeah. It's been taken out.
It's been struck out of section F at the bottom of page 10.
Thank you. I think we got it.
Do you want that put back in?
Yes, ma'am.
Madam Chair, point of order. Point of order, Madam Chair.
One moment, please. I'm checking to see if Mr. Brownlee?
Madam Chair, this isn't on the agenda. We cannot formally consider this resolution. We already went through this. I agree with that, Mr. Adams. I think it's a great idea. But to be in accordance with the sunshine laws, to be in accordance with the way our own rules lay out how we're to conduct committees, we cannot be considering this piece of legislation. That's my point of order, so I'd ask that we move back to the topic at hand, which is general questions regarding the rules.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
the interpretation would be, again, stated, previously acknowledged, he can comment for the future when that
Yes,
is
sir.
an issue being
That's what I
created
did.
for consideration for everybody to please think about before this comes up.
We
for
understood
debate
that.
with council.
We did understand that, thank you.
Madam
Is there
Chair.
anyone else on council that would like to make a comment on this? We're pretty much getting to the allotted time.
Yes, Madam Chair.
One moment, please. The others have not spoken as yet, so if you wouldn't mind holding your comments for a moment. Is there anyone else who would like to make a comment? No? 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 Mr. Brownlee?
The three motions that have gotten us into trouble in this year, that has caused mass confusion in multiple meetings, all three of them are very basic to the functioning of this body. Two of them are outlined specifically in our codified ordinances. And yet, every time they're raised, confusion ensues. So we're not talking about the minutia of parliamentary procedure. Even just tonight, you were out of order when you told me to wait because you do not need to wait when you introduce a point of order. That's immediately discussed and to be considered before anything else. So you were actually, the chair was actually out of order in that
Is that correct?
juncture. And so this is why I mentioned that we need to discuss these things further, because these are not the minutia of parliamentary procedure. These are very basic, and they protect the rights of the body to raise questions. When something is out of order, they need to be permitted the right to point that out immediately so that more further action that is out of order doesn't ensue. So these points are very important. Refer to committee is something very basic, yet it was denied to a member of council back in the winter. Appeal has been denied many times to appeal the decision of the chair. This is outlined specifically in our codified ordinances, and yet confusion ensues every time it comes up. So I am imploring that we please discuss these very basic principles of parliamentary procedure that are even, some of them outlined in our codified ordinances, so that we will understand what's supposed to happen whenever these are brought up, because they are part of the business that we will have to do.
Madam Chair, how are we allowed to discuss what's in the codified ordinances if we're not allowed to discuss what is before us right now? So I don't get it. Are you talking about the old codified or the new one now with the amendments? Because that would be wasting breath since we're going to be changing them anyway.
Good question.
May I respond, Madam Chair?
At the moment, I'm waiting for Blair. Thank you.
Ms. Jones didn't have to get permission to speak.
She did raise her hand, please.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
So I don't mind addressing these issues, okay? The appeal and the point of order are actually the same thing. So when you appeal on a point of order, it is an appeal to the chair or a decision of the chair, so everybody would understand. But it is a motion like any other motion. It requires a second and...
No, Madam Chair, please, can we stop this? This is not true. That is 100% wrong.
Excuse me.
Oh my
I'm reading right here from my little handy
Then
dandy
maybe that's
checkbook here.
outdated or something. I
Point of
don't
order,
know.
the
Mr.
object
Brownlee,
is
you're out of order at the
Oh, my-
moment, please.
to object
I'm
to
ready
the
to leave.
decision of the chair. If everybody would listen to my nice little handbook here. To object to the decision of the chair or to relieve the chairman of the responsibility of a decision. It requires a second. It is debatable when the question is the business of the House. You speak only once. It is not debatable when the motion relates to rules of speaking, decorum in a debate, priority of business, or while an undebatable question is pending. It is not amendable, and it can also be held over by a motion to table the discussion, because the table of the discussion will go to an immediate vote. You would then vote on a point of order, and it requires a majority to pass. Now, you can tell I've worn this book out. I can assure you that this book is as accurate as you can find for immediate referral, okay? So the debate stops with me, and this is parliamentary rules at a glance. So those two items are to be clarified. You can appeal any decision of the chair. The chair doesn't vote. Again, I'm trying to make this as simple as possible. And one person doesn't get to dictate the point of order to everybody else. You all get to decide, okay? Referrals to committee, I have no idea about a referral to a committee. Normally, we don't move to refer matters to committee. We would ask the committee chairman to put that onto the committee's agenda. You don't even need consensus of council to do that. If the committee chairman says, okay, I'll put it on and we'll debate it in committee. It came out of a council meeting, that would satisfy that provision on page 10. And I don't know why that would be a debatable issue, and if it's caused strife in the past, I wasn't there, can't comment on it, but he's correct. That's a pretty simple, basic understanding. I also want to caution him that there are numerous authors that have numerous interpretations out there with regard to the appropriateness of parliamentary proceedings. I have my handbook. I'm sure there are others that would say other things. I'm here to just make sure that everybody understands how we're going to do it. I have to sit here and tell you that tonight I've had 2 points of order. Those are probably the only 2 points of order I've heard in 26 years.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Brownlee?
Thank you. 3 times tonight we've heard incorrect information. First, regarding the sunshine laws, it is clearly stated that we may not deliberate in any fashion business as a council, as a majority of
I'm going to correct you
members.
right here on the face.
So,
That's
no,
an incorrect statement.
Madam Chair, you don't let him
because you're
interrupt
not-
me?
There's
Are
a
you gonna let him
difference
interrupt me?
between
Yes, I am.
debate.
Yes, I am.
That's cute.
There's a difference between debate
Cute.
and decision making.
Thank
So
you.
don't put words in my mouth, Mr. Brownlee.
Thank you.
You're
Oh, it's right
incorrectly
there on the
quoting me.
video.
You
Thank
can
you.
look at that. I said it was a limit on, there is no limit on debating it amongst yourselves and having
It's
discussion.
cute.
You cannot.
How old is that book? Is that the latest revision of Robert's Rules?
To me, yes, sir.
Oh, to you, okay, because our laws specifically state the latest revision of Robert's Rules. You're going to pull out a dilapidated old book from 1970 and say this is what we're going to follow.
Mr. Brownlee?
You're going to ask us to
Mr. Brownlee?
ignore our laws because you think that's cute and fast.
Mr. Brownlee?
I'm done. I'm leaving. This is sickening. You know, you can respect me and refuse to let people interrupt me when you refuse to let me interrupt them. So you should apply the law equally. How about that? Let's try that on for size.
That's become a real personal vendetta, hasn't it?
No, it has become disgust with being treated as a second-class citizen. That's what it has become. Unable to represent my constituents.
Mr. You're out of order, Mr. Brownlee.
Thank you. I'm leaving. You're not going to accomplish anything anyway. Sit here and yap and just talk and be cute and not accomplish anything. Let's get down to business. When I pull out the laws, black and white, this is what it says. What do you say? Oh, I don't interpret it that way. I don't interpret that. The finance director says the same thing. Oh, I don't have to. I don't have to. The mayor says the same thing. I don't have to. That's not fast. That's not quick. That's not how we do things. That's not how we've done them as long as I've been here. Well, okay. What about the rules that I just pointed out to you, spelled out in black and white? Every citizen here, resident, can understand.
Madam Chair, does he have the floor right now?
He has no floor. Mr. Brownlee is way out of order, way out of order.
I'm proud to be out of order, to be honest, right now.
He shouldn't have.
It's a joke.
It's more than that.
Mr. Blair?
It's a joke.
Mr. Blair, I have just one more question that I would like you to clarify. I'm not sure if anyone else has questions as well.
Maybe I should just sell my house and move out of here while I still can get some liquidity.